Hello and welcome to the second video in our screencast series of web programming from scratch. If you remember in the previous recording, we set up a very simple web project and we used Atom. I showed you some of the nice features of Atom and why you might want to use that, at least to get your programming project going. We created a project folder and a very simple web page and showed you some of the tricks that you can do with the Emmet plugin and some of the various packages that are available with Atom. Atom's just cannot say enough nice things about Atom. It's got really nice features, but if you missed those, go back to the first recording and take a look. So this screencast, we're going to talk about putting our project under version control. So the question is, well, what is version control? Version control, if you've ever used a word processor or a spreadsheet or a drawing program, I think all of us are familiar with the good old undo button. You go in and you copy and paste something in the wrong spot, or you mess something up and you just undo it. That's because the software program is watching you work and is looking at the changes that you're making in the document. And when you hit undo, it knows to roll it back to the last time that you saved those changes. So version control it's like undo, but it's for an entire folder. It's for a whole project folder. And there's more to it than that, but for now, that's a good metaphor to start with, and we'll get into more sophisticated stuff later. But for now, think of it as undo for our project folder. So the first thing we have to do is we have to tell our version control software to start watching our project folder and keeping track of what changes we make when we add a file, or we edit a file, or we create a folder, or rename something. Our version control software will watch that. Now, the software we're going to use is called Git, and it's very popular. A lot of people use Git, even Microsoft. And it's free, it's open source, it's cross-platform, runs on everything. There are GUI front ends for it. It's every software tool that I know of speaks Git, Xcode, Visual Studio, Eclipse, NetBeans, Komodo. So you can use whatever tool you want and do your version control stuff with Git. Now the question is, do you have Git installed? Well, let's find out. Easy ways to find out if you have Git installed if you're not sure. And if you're running Mac OS X or Linux, chances are you do have it installed. Windows, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're not sure if you have Git installed, just get to a command prompt and type Git. And if you don't get an error message like file not found, then Git is installed and you're good to go. If you do get an error message, then for, say, Mac OS X users, just install Apple's free Xcode developer tools. That'll take care of you, plus give you some nifty developer tools. For Linux users, just use your package manager and grab it off of that. For Windows users, you can go to getscm.com, grab the free Windows installer. And it's pretty easy. It's standard, next, finish. And you could also use the chocolatey software installer for Windows, or if you've got Sigma on Windows, you can install Git using that. However you've got it set up. The easy way, I think, if you're just getting started, is just to install it off of the package here. So getscm.com for you Windows users. Now, as a side note, here's the webpage for Atom, atom.io. If you want to go grab that, if you like the look of it from these videos, by all means. Once again, free, runs on Windows, runs on Linux, runs on Mac OS X, works great. Lots of nifty features. We also looked at Emmet last time, and Emmet.io, as you might suspect, is the homepage for Emmet. And here's a bunch of cheat sheet codes that you can use as you start getting used to Emmet to make your work that much easier. So let's go back to our project, and this time we're going to put it under version control. We're going to tell Git to watch my project folder and keep track of the changes. Now, Git is a command line tool, as you saw, by default, but there are plenty of friendly GUI front-end programs that will let you use Git in a very helpful hand-holding way. So I would recommend, if you're just starting out using Git, use one of these. And here's an example, SourceTree. SourceTree is free, open source, runs on Windows, runs on Mac OS 10. Here is the web page, sourcetreeapp.com. So I'm going to grab that. Linux users, you've got, you have a lot of other choices for GUI front ends. So, for example, you can go get Cola and get G. So it's just getting started. Really use a GUI. And once you get familiar with that, then you can jump to the command line, and there's some things that are a little faster and maybe a little flexible from the command line. But for now, you're good. So I'm going to go ahead and create this folder and put it under version control. I'm going to create a repository. Now, there's two types of repositories, as you see here. There's local and there's remote. Local is basically a folder that we're watching that's on our desktop. And we're going to start with that. That's really easy to do. We'll talk about remote repositories a little bit. So I'm going to click plus new repository, create local repository. Actually, I'm going to add an existing local repository. And it's already finding, there's my web app, there's the folder. And I click on open, and it just kind of confirms, is that what you want to call it? Or do you want to put it somewhere else? Nah, I'm okay. Now it gives me an option of creating a remote repository at the very same time. This is really handy. This can speed up things as you get a little more experienced with Git. But for now, I'm not going to check that because we're going to do the remote repository later, because it's almost as easy to do it later. I want you to get used to the general mindset of having a version control project. So I'm just going to create it. Click. Boom. Now, the first thing we notice is there's this little one that marks we got file changes. Well, wait a minute, we didn't change anything. Let's open it up, double click, and we did. Because we told Git to watch this folder, we didn't tell it what inside that folder it should be watching. So it went into the folder, it saw that's files that it had never seen before, and it throws up the SourceTree, throws up a little question mark saying, do you want me to watch this or not? Or what's going on, boss? So we need to stage. This is our first change, is we're going to add our index.html folder, stage it. So I'm going to click on this. We'll just basically stage everything under there. And now it's in the stage file section. And it gives us a little preview of, what's in there. And it's all green. Says no, this is the first time this has gone in there. And go ahead, and I need to put in a commit. Commit messages are optional, but they're a really good idea. Because this way, when you put some changes in there, you can make a little note to say, okay, what changed, and maybe why it changed, or who changed it, or how it changed. Just kind of like write a little note to yourself. So I'm just going to say, okay, the initial commit for my web app. And that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and commit. And boom. Now everything is nothing to commit. We're all good. The little one is gone, showing everything's up to date. Now let's go back to Atom. And one thing we notice in our project folder, we've got a .git folder. This is the file. These are the configuration files that our Git software uses to help track the changes inside this folder. And they will not be, well, we don't have to worry about them. We shouldn't really fuss with them at all. But let's go ahead, let's make some changes, like some simple changes, and see how Git works for them. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this from white to not ping. There is no color ping. How about pink? That works. I'm going to save the file, and my live preview shows that. Okay, pink, very fancy, very metropolitan. Now let's go back to look in SourceTree. There's a change. Well, let's open that up. And now instead of the question mark, we get a little icon that we hover that over there and says it's been modified. Oh, how's it been modified? We go over here and it says, well, it used to be white, but now it's pink. So in other words, we took away this line and we added this line, which basically means we changed it. So I'm going to stage that again, and I'm going to commit my changes. Once again, make a little note. Change text color from white to pink. All right, cool. Commit, grind. Once again, we're clean, good, not a problem. Well, let's do a little bit more here. I'm going to add another file to my project. And in fact, all these style notes here in my header, I really should, if I was going to be doing this in a proper sort of way, I should put these in a separate style sheet. Really. So I'm going to go to my project folder and call new file, and I'm going to go main.css. Okay. And I'm going to take basically everything under style, cut it out, and you notice all my styles went away. And I'm going to paste it. Now, of course, I'm going to have to fix this a little bit because, first of all, I don't need the style tags because it's a style sheet, so we already know their styles. And also, I should probably be specific when I say this dot cities. The city style is a div. This is for a cities div, and the body I'm okay. Now, of course, we still don't have a styles back, so we need to fix that. We need to tell our web page where to find its styles. And this is where Emmet's really going to help us out a lot. All we have to do is type link and press tab. Boom. Put in the name of our style sheet, and voila, our styles are back in because now it knows where to find the styles. Here, we're good. Cool. So we made a bunch of changes there. What happens with Get? Oh, Get says, hey, you made a couple changes. Oh, that certainly did. Let's see what changes they make. Oh, you added a new file. We've seen that question mark before. Do you want me to track it or not or whatever? I don't know. Maybe I do. Let's take a look at it and we click on that and we get, here's the contents, and all right. And here it goes, hey, you changed the index.html. In other words, you got rid of all this and you added this thing in green. So we're going to stage everything. I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes. And I'll put a little commit message here, say moved styles to separate CSS file. Okay, go commit, grind, easy peasy, and we're good. All right, cool. So that's local repository or repo, as they're known, and you can do perfectly well just keeping everything local, and just be committing your changes and having all sorts of fun with that. But I want to talk about remote repositories or remote repos for a moment, because you get a lot of advantage off of it. First of all, if you push your code out to the internet, or that's really what a remote repository is. It's a Git folder that's out on someone else's server on the public internet. One of the advantages to that is that now your code is available to you wherever you are. You can work on it wherever you happen to be. You can do it in a web browser, on someone else's PC. You can work on it on your smartphone, on your tablet. Just move it into a different piece of software. You can share it with your team. If you're working on a team project, everyone can just grab the code from the remote repository and work it on their local repositories, and then they push their changes back up to the remote, and everything gets merged in, and it's just a really handy way of doing sort of a collaboration work. So you might have a class project where you're working with a couple of other students, and so a remote repository is really easy to deal with. So it's pretty easy to set up. It's not going to cost you anything if you don't want it to. Two of the more popular places to set up a remote repository, you can certainly set up your own if you have a server laying around, is GitHub, and there are free plans. Now, the advantage of not using GitHub, now I do have a GitHub account, but there's another that's very popular. It's called BitBucket, and it's right here. Now, the advantage to BitBucket, particularly for student projects, is that you can create a private repository. In other words, you can keep your code, keep anyone else from seeing your code, unless you want them to. And you do that for free. Just set up a free team account on BitBucket, and you can create a private repository and have all the advantages of the remote repository with the advantages of having it all local and protected. So I recommend BitBucket for a student or class project, and you can still bring in teams. You still work on teams. It's got all the other advantages of GitHub, and it's still free. So get a free team account on BitBucket. But regardless, whether you get a GitHub account or you get a BitBucket account, you get one for free. And so we're going to push out our local repository. We're going to copy it out to a remote repository. In order to do that, we have to tell SourceTree about our remote accounts. And so I've set up my GitHub information here, my username, I gave my password. So it can now connect to it as me. It's pretty easy. Just click on add and you say, well, what kind of server is it? Put your username, put your password. How is it being passed? For the most part, you can take defaults. I've set BitBucket as my default remote repository server, but I can pick either one. So there we go. Here's my remote repository, my local one, my web app. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say I'm going to publish this to remote. And where I want it, I can pick GitHub, I can pick BitBucket, but BitBucket's my default. And I'm just going to keep calling it my web app. And okay, I don't really need a description. It's a private repository, so I'm going to create. Hopefully this will work. Bang. And now let's go into my remote. And look at that. It shows up. Let me refresh my page up here on the website and look at that. There's my remote repository. But it's empty. Ooh. Wonder why. Well, it's kind of the same reason why our local repository was empty first, because we didn't put anything into it. So in this case, I need to actually push my commits, my local commits, to my remote repository. So that's the workflow. The workflow is you commit your changes locally, and then you push them to the remote. So say, okay. I've only got one branch. We'll talk about branches later, but for now, that's where we're pushing it out. Okay, let's see if this works. Grind, grind, grind. And we'll let it use my login info. And it goes, oh, okay, here we go. So it's pretty happy. Let's go ahead and refresh this again and see if my source code showed up. And voila, my code is here. Here we go, index.html, main.css, and we are golden. Great, super. So that's good for now. And next time I'm going to show you how to use Git and our remote repository to move our code out into the cloud so we can work on it from wherever we are using any kind of internet connected device that we have, smartphone, tablet, someone else's browser, and we just keep all our changes intact. So that'll do for now, and we'll see you in a bit.